Alright, so we're back on this Dodge. Talked to the customer. He said that it was actually tripping fuses or blowing fuses occasionally. I didn't know that in the last video. So we decided to go ahead and replace the motor. And like I said last video, this motor goes up in here. This regulator is bolted to it. 3 bolts hold it on. You want to take those 3 bolts out and kind of move the regulator out of the way. And these pins are a pain in the butt to get out. You're going to spend probably 15-20 minutes getting them out. Probably some cussing. You may injure yourself or get a couple marks on you because you got to stick your arm in the door, and of course everything's got sharp edges. Sometimes you don't know if you're going to pull out your arm or a bloody stump, but that's all a day's work. And what you want to do is pull back on this motor, take a screwdriver or upholstery tool and pull back on this motor, and then reach around from the inside of the door. I don't know if you can see those pins. A tab, they're more of a tab. See those 2 tabs right there? You want to push those in while you're prying on the motor, and that'll pull the motor, that'll actually release it. It sounds easy, but it's not as easy as you think it is when you're in there reaching around inside the door. You can't really see that well. I use a mirror quite a bit. I put a light in the door. And sometimes, actually if you had 2 people, it would help. Have someone pry on the motor a little bit while you're inside there popping them out. Once you get them out, the motor slides right out. Unfortunately, the new motor doesn't come with new pop pins or rivets, so we're going to have to reuse these. The way you get these off of the motor is you take this end, the pointy end, that's the end that was inside the door, and I just take a soft hammer. I hammer it out, usually 1 or 2 good hits, and it'll pop this middle pin out. And then you'll have 2 pieces that look like this. So you just put this in through the motor, and then once you get it all set up, drive these back through and put the regulator back on, and it should be good to go. But like I said, the hardest thing about this whole job, other than taking the door panel off, it's pretty easy. Everything's pretty easy on these. Just those pins will fight you all the way to the end normally. I've done a few of these before. It's always the same. It gets easier. It's I don't know. It's the dumbest thing. It's like anything in the world. You can mess with it for 5 minutes, and then all of a sudden it just comes out on its own. So that's where we're at. We're gonna put the new motor in, put the old pins back in the new motor, and test it out. So once you get all your little plastic rivets out of the old motor, you just pop them back into the door like that. Then you'll just drive these pins back in. I got these 2 drove back in. Just throw them in there. You don't want to get too crazy. I use a pretty soft hammer when I do these. You don't want to get nuts with it. It doesn't take too much to get them back in. There you go. That's it. Now this is completely back in. And you want to make sure this gear is facing outward. I don't know if you can put it in the other way, but you don't want to mess. Once you get those pins back in, you don't want to take those back out again. So make sure you double check that the motor's oriented the right way and that the gear is going the right way and all that good stuff. The gear has to be out this way, obviously, to go back into your regulator. I didn't show that on camera, but what I like to do is put this up against the engine, the regulator, and then just tap on the power and motor switch. And just be real careful. You don't want to force this on. Just barely touch it until it engages, and then once it engages, you can kind of turn this where you need to turn it to put the bolts back in. But you can mess around for a long time trying to get it to line up. That's why I just hit the switch a little bit until it falls into place. And then once it falls into place, you can move it enough to line up your bolts. And obviously you don't want to go crazy when you tighten these bolts. That's about all you need. So once those all 3 in, you put your connector back on. Now's a good time to test it before you put the door panel back on. You can see the windows coming down. going up. That's about it. It's, now it's just a matter of putting the door panel back on and you know, shipping it out the door.